into this debate.
Stuart Nash.
Oh, sorry, was the member going to take the call?
No, I've called you.
Oh, sorry, thank you very much, Mr Chair, thank you very much. For a minute there, I saw him writing away furiously and I thought he was going to stand up and address some questions that Leanne Dalzell had asked, which were very relevant. But I would also like to pick up on one of David Parker's points, if I may, Mr Chair, just in the beginning. I sat in the Select Committee, as did the Chair. There wasn't much debate about this, but there was healthy discussion on all parts, actually, Part 1 included, very healthy discussion around what this meant, and there was consensus, officials explained how it would work, etc. The Maori Party often didn't have someone there, but they did. And I would have thought, Mr Chair, that at some point, if they had concerns...
The member can't make comments about the absence of a member. So I'll just bring you back, and we are on Part 1. It's a very narrow, only 3 clauses, 3 to 5. I'll ask the member to concentrate on that.
Thank you very much, Mr Chair. Yes, but I suppose my point, and we're talking about Part 1 here, which really is quite an important part of the bill, because what it does set out is the purposes of the Act and really the interpretation. But I was very surprised when the Maori Party voted against this. I thought there was consensus. I'm sure that the member in the chair... Yeah, they did, didn't they? The member in the chair would have assumed consensus, and I'm sure he brought the bill and reported back to Westpac.
A point of order, Rahui Katani.
Seek leave to amend the record to show that the Māori Party is supporting this bill.
Leave is sought for the Maori Party to recast their vote. Is there any objection?
That ends up as a 0 vote.
So I just... leave is sought for the Maori Party to amend their vote. We're talking about on the preamble. Leave is sought for that purpose, and you wish to vote. Would you like to tell us what you want to achieve?
4 votes in favour.
4 votes in favour. Well, leave has been sought for the member, and leave, no one has objected. Well, point of... Look, it's very clear. Leave has been sought for the Maori Party to amend their vote on the preamble. Leave is sought. There was no objection. The Maori Party vote will be amended accordingly. That's the end of the matter. Now...
I need to say that means that it was a completely unanimous.
Yes, and that means that the vote on the preamble was unanimous. We don't need to put the vote again. That means it's unanimous.
And it won't appear in the record.
And it won't appear in the record. Are we all very clear? Now... we have a point of order, the Honourable David Cunliffe.
This is now an interesting situation, Chairman, because I was about to clarify before the leave motion was put matters such as whether there would be an opportunity to debate the Māori Party's seeking to amend its vote.
No, there's not.
Chairman,
sit down, please. There is no debate on the leave. You either accept it or you reject it. I put the leave, no one objected, that's the end of the matter, and there is no further debate on it.
Order, sir.
Honourable David Cunliffe.
Sir, that matter having been settled, then the next matter was how the record would read, sir, given that the leave motion has been part of the proceedings of the House.
I have just said how it will be. It will appear in Hansard as a unanimous vote. That's how the record, and we don't have to put the vote again because everybody has agreed. That's how the record will show. Now, Stuart Nash had the call. Point of order, Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr Chairman, can I therefore seek your clarification whether for example, these points of order or other comments in relation to the Māori Party, the questions about the Māori Party's position on this bill, whether they would be expunged from the record or whether they would remain on the Hansard, notwithstanding the fact that the leave motion has been accepted and that the vote itself will be shown as unanimous.
Good point.
I just need to seek some advice on this matter. Right. The record will show that no vote took place, and I'll refer members to Speaker's Rulings 68.4. And that's the one that we need to refer to. In regards to whether the points of order that have come up during the course of this leave, I'm seeking advice on, and I can't give you an answer on that at the moment, but I'm seeking advice. So I'll come back to you on that matter.
Speaker, without being
Point of order, the Honourable Steve
without
Chadwick.
being difficult on this, subsequent to the vote, the initial vote by the Māori Party, members on our side raised concern about that vote, and we do not want that in the Hansard if now the Māori Party are changing their vote, and I think that's the point my colleague
I
was
hear what you
making.
say. The comments that were made will stand. All right? The comments that you are bringing to my attention, points that your party made during debate, those comments will stand. They're on the record. As will others. Those, all right? We're clear on that? Very good. Stuart, Nash has a call.
Thank you very much, Mr Chair. Well, thank you, Ms Cartonnay. I mean, it's good to hear the Māori Party are supporting this bill, but I think no one's more thankful than the member in the chair, Mr Foss, because I think at some point he was probably going to have to go to Westpac or go to the Māori Party and try and figure out what part they didn't like. But now that that's sorted, that's very good. Because as mentioned, I thought that this had gone through unanimously. It received robust debate, but not a lot of debate, but robust debate. Now, Mr Chair, we come back to part one, and as I mentioned in a previous talk, I suppose the main gist of this bill is actually Clause 3, Sub B. We're talking about the efficient conduct of Westpac's New Zealand business. But this, of course, isn't just about Westpac's business, even though this is, legislation is the only way in which this can go through. It is also about protecting the requirements of Westpac's customers' business. But one of the most interesting things, Mr Chair, if I may talk about, and this is assets, the interpretation of assets. What we're talking about here is Clause 4, Part 1. And it says, assets means property of any kind, whether tangible or intangible, real or personal, etc. And the first part there is estates or interests in any land, including the rights of occupation of land or buildings. And the question that I would like to ask, and it's a difficult one to answer, but I am wondering, Mr Chair, how Westpac are going to account for the Cunliffe farms, for example. The Westpac Bank, my understanding, is a major shareholder or the major lender in the Cunliffe farms. Now, I wonder how this is going to be dealt with. Is it an interest in the land? Is it a liability in the land? And how will this be accounted for? Will it actually count? Will the Reserve Bank look at this asset register and count the Cunliffe farms as an asset, or will it look at its liabilities and count as the liabilities? And I must admit, Mr Chair, this goes to the heart of this whole debate around farming. As we know, the Reserve Bank has put in place new liquidity provisions around increased money held by banks against loans to the agricultural sector. So the Reserve Bank has major concerns about the level of debt, and I think it's sitting at about $42 billion at the moment, Mr Chair, across all banks. But the Reserve Bank has major concerns about the level of debt against the agricultural sector. And this is why I bring up this point. What is an asset and what is termed a liability? And the Cunliffe farm one is a big deal. Some dairy farms, we are told, Mr Chair, have dropped by up to 30%. The value of other dairy farms, Mr Chair, I've been told, have actually increased in value over this global financial crisis. And so at some point, because it says this in the Act, when the Governor-General signs off, which we're going to talk about this in part 2, what will happen is there'll be a line drawn in the sand, and Westpac's assets will have to be assessed, Westpac's liabilities will have to be assessed. And that will probably be quite a major task, and I'm unsure who's going to undertake that. Will it be Westpac? Will it be the parent company? Or will it be the Reserve Bank? And if we come down to liabilities, Mr Chair, I'm talking about page 5 now. Liabilities, debts and charges, duties and obligations of every description, whether present or future, actual, contingent or prospective. I mean, that is how we understand liabilities. But again, it is a very good point that David Parker brought up. how are these liabilities going to be accounted for on the Westpac balance sheet? Because I have no doubt in this economic climate there are a lot of liabilities out there that the bank must be very concerned about. And in fact, if you look at some of the... Mr Chair?
Stuart Nash.
Thank you very much, Mr Chair. If you look at the equity held in some of the dairy farms, especially these dairy farms that have actually dropped in value by, I'm told, by one of the banks, by up to 30%, then I wonder what impact this has had on Westpac's asset register and on their liability register. Now some of the other asset terms I would just like to question as well. We're talking about goodwill and any business undertaking. Now, I'm not too sure what any business undertaking means, but we can sort of guess around that. But the valuation of goodwill. Now, there's a classic case where Rolls-Royce used to put a value of $1, £1, on their brand. Now, the reason they did that is because they knew that it had a value. They knew that the Rolls-Royce brand was worth something. They just had absolutely no idea how much it was worth. So putting $1 on that brand signalled to the market and signalled on their balance sheet that they knew it was worth something, but they just couldn't quantify it. Now, this was a while ago, and I know with advanced accounting practices there will be models around how to value goodwill. But it is an interesting point, and I wonder if the Reserve Bank actually values goodwill using a different methodology or the same methodology as the Westpac Banking Corporation. And it would be interesting to know, actually, just from an interesting perspective, I suppose, what value goodwill has on the asset register of the Westpac Bank. Another one as well, Mr Chair, is intellectual property and applications pending for intellectual property. Now, intellectual property does have a definition here, and it's one of the few that actually does have a definition, and I suspect the reason it does is because we are moving in a fast-changing world. The 21st century was completely different from the 20th century, patents, all this sort of carry on. We've had patent legislation through this House, and it is fraught with difficulties. But, Mr Chair, if you have a look at the definition of intellectual property on page 5, it means all patents, designs, copyright, know-how. Then it talks about trade secrets, trademarks, service marks, and other intellectual or industrial property rights of any kind and any rights in relation to them. And it is a very interesting question, is how would you value a trade secret? In fact, how would you even acknowledge a trade secret? Would you have on your balance sheet, asset register, $5 million trade secrets? Now, if the Reserve Bank came along and saw this figure, I wonder how they will account for that. Will they say, well, we need to audit your accounts. You have $5 million of trade secrets on your asset register. Can you please show us? And of course, the Westpac Bank is going to be absolutely reluctant to lay out what their trade secrets are, because no bank is ever going to, no organisation or institution is ever going to let an independent institution understand what their trade secrets are. So it's a little unusual that it's in here, but the fact that it is on the asset register, or it could be on the asset register, and remember that this is specific to Westpac New Zealand. This isn't about all trading banks or even much wider than that, Mr Chair. This is about Westpac New Zealand. The fact that it has trade secrets there means that there is a high probability that it is on their asset register. Or I could be wrong, and maybe the member in the chair could clarify this. Maybe in every bill, in the interpretation phase, in every sort of finance bill, there has to be a definition of intellectual property, and this is just the standard definition that has been taken from every single bill that has an intellectual property clause in it, or may well have an intellectual property clause. But the valuing of trade secrets is a very, very interesting one. There are other complications, or not complications, I suppose questions, Mr Chair, under the asset definition. Chooses an action and money. Now, I'm a businessman. I'm not too sure what that exact means, and I suspect that Amy Adams is going to stand up. In fact, it was interesting, Mr Chair, as Amy Adams shouts across the House, she was one that said people in the Labor Party have not run a business or contributed to any productive enterprise. Well, if I'm right, Amy Adams is a lawyer. In fact, I have no doubt, Mr Chair, that Amy Adams was one of the people that set up a whole lot of structures that allowed farmers to pay about $1,500 in tax. In fact, if I understand right from Amy Adams' interest of register of pecuniary interest, she has about 3 houses and a number of farms. So I am very keen for Amy Adams to stand up and take a 10-minute call before the dinner break, and explain all these things, because as a lawyer I have no doubt she can answer